King.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Por supuesto que además de reiterar ya los saludos...
Miguel, don't start your intervention yet. It's just Thank you. Distinguished commissioners, colleagues, we have settled our problem and we can start again. I would just check if the alternate commissioner from Brazil is already back.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I?
Yes, please take the floor.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to register our, we're glad to hear from Guinea-Bissau. I think our colleague from Guinea-Bissau put forward an interesting question, and I was also very glad to hear from Dr. Swiman. Yes, it is an interesting issue, and we might have possibilities. It would be interesting to consider, in line with what Dr. Sweden stated, might be interesting to consider possibilities of working with fishing commission of the African countries, subjects like capacity building. The South Atlantic does merit look, so to say. So that's what Brazil would like to say.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it was well noted by the incoming chair and the new vice chair. So they can organize the work the way that they accommodate also those interests and needs. Now I will pass the floor to alternate commissioner from Argentina. Miguel, please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, y además de reiterar mis felicitaciones y saludos a Robert, a Alex y a Lindsay, quisiera referirme, y disculpen que Argentina pida nuevamente la palabra, quisiera referirme al tema de vaquita y mencionar que la declaración del Grupo Buenos Aires, los miembros del GBA reconocen los esfuerzos realizados por México para evitar la extinción de la especie. Destacar especialmente la celebración del acuerdo del 24 de septiembre del año pasado para eliminar las redes agalleras y desmayo en todo el área de distribución de la vaquita, así como el establecimiento del área de tolerancia cero. Y en este sentido, desde el GBA solicitamos al Gobierno de México que utilice todos los recursos a su disposición para evitar la extinción de la vaquita y, por supuesto, ofrecemos cooperación para poder sumarnos a sus esfuerzos. Esto era lo que quería agregar. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Now I open the floor for observer governments, so governments, non-parties. And I pass the floor to Japan. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning and good afternoon. Like the distinguished delegate from Australia, Nick, I am working in the civilized time today. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the excellent work done by Robert and Alex for organizing the scientific committee for the last 2 years, even during the difficult situation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Congratulations. Several commissioners touched upon the issue of the conservation of vaquita. While Japan is aware of the importance of this particular issue, Japan also would like to draw the attention of the commissioners on the issue of dangerous situation of the scientific committee itself. Scientific committee is in dangerous situation on its central role of the management of whaling due to the drastic decrease of the scientists involved in the management of whaling. Many eminent scientists did not participate in the last scientific committee or left the scientific committee or unfortunately passed away. Even from the secretariat, Greg has left, Cherry is about to leave. In this regard, I really wish Yain could succeed. Excellent work done by Greg and Cherry. But in any case, due to the drastic decrease of eminent scientists, the scientific committee is in a very dangerous situation. Therefore, I would like to draw the attention of the commissioners once again to help the scientific committee to conduct its original task stipulated in the convention. And in this regard, I'd like to strongly support the intervention by Iceland and also intervention by St. Lucia. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Japan. Next are intergovernmental organizations. And I see the hand from Comhavat, so please take representative of Comhavat, Mr. Yamrich, please take the floor. Mr. Lamrich? You're muted if you, yeah, no.
Thanks, Mr. President. I want only to highlight something about the ATLAFCO. As you may know, that ATLAFCO had already made efforts to contribute to the scientific research in the Western African countries by organizing some citation campaign in collaboration with the Scientific Institute of biennial. This year we have made other efforts to organize another campaign with the collaboration of IWC, but as the pandemic, of COVID-19 and with the restriction, we can't go forward, but we are thinking to have this campaign maybe in the future if there is an evolution in the pandemic situation in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I use this opportunity to thank Atlavko or Komhavat for a good cooperation that we are having as IWC with you, and I look forward to strengthen this cooperation in the future. Now I will open the floor for NGOs, and in order for me to be able to steer the meeting, I would ask all the NGOs that want to intervene under this agenda item to raise their hands now, and then I will close the list. Okay, I have one hand, and with this I close the list. So I pass the floor to Comarino, Mexico. Please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Hago esta intervención en nombre de 19 organizaciones no gubernamentales que estamos desesperadamente preocupadas por la difícil situación de la vaquita marina. Una copia completa de esta declaración, incluyendo la lista completa de las organizaciones que la respaldan, se publicará en el chat del Zoom y se presentará a la Secretaría. Señor presidente, durante décadas el Comité Científico de la CBI y esta comisión, a través de 3 resoluciones, han advertido del precipitado declive de la vaquita y su inminente extinción, a menos que se elimine por completo la pesca con redes de enmalle dentro del hábitat de la vaquita y se retiren las redes ilegales. También se ha alentado el desarrollo de artes de pesca alternativas seguras para la vaquita. Por desgracia, estos llamamientos han sido ignorados en gran medida y la voluntad política para ponerlos en práctica ha sido insuficiente. También se ha alentado el desarrollo de artes de pesca alternativas y seguras para la vaquita. Por desgracia, estos llamamientos han sido ignorados en gran medida y la voluntad política para ponerlos en práctica ha sido insuficiente. La vaquita está ahora al borde de la extinción por una sola razón: el fracaso de México para hacer cumplir sus propias disposiciones legales para prohibir el uso de redes de enmalle y así evitar la captura incidental de vaquitas. Existe amplia evidencia de que la pesca ilegal ocurre de día y de noche. En cambio, prácticamente no hay evidencia de los esfuerzos de aplicación para disuadir las operaciones criminales dentro del Alto Golfo de California. El reciente anuncio de México de una escala de acciones de aplicación de la ley basadas en un conjunto de factores desencadenantes socava la intención de la zona de tolerancia cero, donde supuestamente la pesca está estrictamente prohibida. Según el Plan de México, el gobierno no aplicará el 100% de su capacidad de ejecución hasta que se observen más de 50 embarcaciones de pesca ilegal en un solo día. México aún no ha demostrado su capacidad para hacer cumplir sus leyes y no estamos convencidos de que lo vaya a hacer ahora, a menos que la comunidad internacional lo presione de forma significativa. Observamos que ha habido algunas acciones de aplicación de la ley que han tenido éxito, con detenciones e incautaciones de buches de Totoaba. Sin embargo, estas acciones no han interrumpido significativamente las actividades pesqueras en el Alto Golfo. Una campaña real y concertada de aplicación de la ley para patrullar permanentemente el refugio de la vaquita y en particular el área de tolerancia cero, utilizando barcos, aviones no tripulados y otras tecnologías, es necesaria para proporcionar a la vaquita esperanza de recuperación. Además, México y los países de tránsito y destino de los buches de Totoaba deben colaborar y coordinar el intercambio de inteligencia y las operaciones de aplicación de la ley para exponer, arrestar y desmantelar las redes criminales organizadas dedicadas a la pesca y el comercio ilegal de buches de Totoaba. La vaquita hoy debe ser una llamada de atención a todos los gobiernos, a la Comisión Ballenera Internacional y a otros acuerdos ambientales multilaterales para que promulguen leyes, reglamentos, políticas y acuerdos fuertes para evitar que cualquier especie o población sufra el destino de la vaquita. De hecho, observamos que el estado de conservación de muchos otros cetáceos en el mundo es preocupante. Y hacemos un llamado a todos los países en cuyos territorios viven o migran estas poblaciones y especies para que tomen las medidas adecuadas para protegerlas mejor. Debemos actuar colectivamente de forma más temprana y eficaz para detener el continuo declive de los cetáceos debido a la captura accidental, la contaminación, el ruido oceánico y otras amenazas. En este sentido, reconocemos el papel importante y creciente que está desempeñando la Comisión Ballenera Internacional a través de su trabajo científico y de conservación para abordar las numerosas amenazas a las que se enfrentan estos animales. Alentamos a los países miembros de la CBI a que apoyen firmemente y mejoren estas iniciativas. Agradecemos a los gobiernos que han expresado su preocupación por la vaquita y nos unimos a ellos para solicitar respetuosamente a la Secretaría presente urgentemente una carta al presidente de México para expresar esta preocupación y preguntar cómo la Comisión Ballenera Internacional y sus gobiernos miembros y organizaciones observadoras pueden ayudar a proteger a la vaquita. Instamos a los gobiernos a acercarse de forma bilateral a México para ofrecer su asistencia financiera, económica y de otro tipo para ayudar a México a salvar a la vaquita. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. And your appeal was noted. With this, I would close the interventions. I use this opportunity to congratulate also Alex Zerbini for taking over the chairing of the scientific committee and Lindsay Porter for taking the position of the vice chair for the next 3 years. I wish you both a lot of success, and I take this opportunity to remind you that hopefully we can meet next year at the meeting of the scientific committee in Bled, scheduled at the moment from 26th of April till 8th of May. So with this, I will go on the next agenda sub-item, which is information from the Conservation Committee. Extension of previous year's one-year work program and continuation of leadership of the Conservation Committee. I call your attention to the work of the Conservation Committee, which met virtually last year to work on time-critical issues. I use this opportunity to thank the leadership of the Conservation Committee and all the participants for their devoted work they have done in these difficult times. The report was posted on the website of this virtual special meeting on August the 16th, and made available in the 3 languages. I give the floor now to the chair of the Conservation Committee, Lorenzo. Please take the floor.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And I think this is the first time I'm going to present something at these small hours. I think the last time I was awake was after the reception in the commissioners meeting in Brazil. Okay, on behalf of the entire team at the Conservation Committee, I'm pleased to provide the Commission with an update from the Conservation Committee. I'll start with a bit of background, especially for those commissioners that are new to this committee. At the founding of IWC 75 years ago, it was probably hardly anticipated that bycatch in fishing operation, ship strikes, marine pollution, underwater noise and chemical, marine debris, and others might become a primary threat to healthy cetacean populations. The list of these threats to cetaceans due to human activities has expanded over the history of IWC, and the Scientific Committee and Conservation Committee have responded accordingly in the scope of their scientific and stewardship roles. The Conservation Committee plays a key role in supporting the dissemination of IWC scientific work and the search for effective and practical mitigations by collaboration with partners and who have the relevant mandates. Regards of the work of the Conservation Committee, the work responds to recommendations from the Commission, such as the Bycatch Mitigation Initiative and the Scientific Committee, such as the impacts of whale watching. The Conservation Committee's work is guided by a 10-year strategic plan and a 5-year work plan, and both plans have been endorsed by the Commission, and you can check those in the website of the IWC. The strategic plan identifies priority threats to cetaceans, priority actions, measures of success, key partnerships, and resourcing, and a midterm review of the strategic plan is currently underway, and the CC planning group meeting will be held later this year to address the review among other tasks. The work plan, as you know, is a living document and can be adapted as circumstances evolve. And together, these plans establish a long-term vision of healthy and well-managed populations and recovered cetaceans populations worldwide. The update of the Conservation Committee continues to meet every 2 years as agreed by the Commission, and the primary purpose of the 2020 virtual CC meeting, you can also see the report, and there's a link in this paper, was to agree on a 1-year extension of the Conservation Committee work plan. This will now be extended by an additional year given the postponement of IWC 68 to October 2022. The primary work areas for the Conservation Committee at this time include the Bycatch Mitigation Initiative, ship strikes, underwater noise, guidance for the fast-growing whale watching industry, development of the conservation management plans that have been approved by the Scientific Committee, joint work with the Scientific Committee on marine debris and ecosystem functioning, climate change, and chemical pollution. The work of the Conservation Committee is supported, and I'd like to underline this, a voluntary conservation fund. This is a dedicated steering group that reviews and awards funding requested to and according to the work plan priorities. Contributions to this fund are welcome from members' governments, international organizations, and other appropriate donors. We would like to show our very warm appreciation to those members and countries, civil society organizations, and other organizations that have contributed to our work. We mentioned this on the first day and second day of the meeting, a request, and it has been noted that due to the postponement of IWC 68, the leaders of the various Conservation Committee subsidiary bodies, chair, vice chair, chairs of standing working groups have agreed to extend the roles until the IWC 68 meeting, and I would like to thank them for a very hard work. And I would like to thank also the Secretariat, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So many thanks to the Commission for providing the opportunity for an update from the Conservation Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Are there any questions or comments from the floor? I see no requests for the floor from the contracting. Okay, yes, New Zealand. Please take the floor. Distinguished Commissioner from New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, may I use this intervention to also add my New Zealand's thanks to the outgoing Chair of the Scientific Committee and to welcome Alex and Lindsay. New Zealand puts great store on the conservation agenda, and we wish to record our thanks and support to the Chair and to the members of the Conservation Committee for their work. Lorenzo has outlined the wide range of projects and actions underway under this committee. I'd just like to highlight two where New Zealand has had some recent involvement, so we can attest to the good work that's going on under the Conservation Committee. The first is the important bycatch mitigation initiative. Really congratulate the IWC on that. And the second is in the context of our earlier discussions around the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just wish to highlight the IWC Whale Watching Handbook. The handbook is revamped. It's a great tool. It's accessible on the IWC website. New Zealand has been helping the Secretariat to promote the handbook, and we believe it will be a very valuable asset for those countries with whale watching industries to help operators as they look to recover the economic tourism sector post-pandemic. A great resource. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, New Zealand. Now I have alternate commissioner from please take the floor, Lucia. We cannot hear you, Lucia. We cannot hear you.
¿Me escuchan ahora?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Disculpen, gracias. Disculpen por el inconveniente técnico. Queríamos aprovechar esta oportunidad para felicitar a México por sus excelentes labores en la presidencia del Comité de Conservación. Asimismo, queríamos expresar nuestro apoyo en particular a la propuesta del Plan de Conservación y Manejo para los delfines de río de Sudamérica y de las ballenas jorobadas de la población centroamericana del Pacífico Norte. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Next one is the alternate commissioner from Brazil. Please take the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to join Diana in congratulating Dr. Lorenzo for all the reasons that were put here forward, and also stress, like she did, the importance we attach to this river dolphins conservation and management plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next one is the distinguished commissioner from Belgium. Stephanie, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and good day to all colleagues. I will do the same as New Zealand because I didn't want to raise my hand in the extensive discussion we had on the SC, but I would like to I would like to have Belgium put on record also thanking Robert for his excellent leadership over the past few years in those difficult conditions, and also welcoming Alex and Lindsay to continue the great work and the important work the SC is doing. And Belgium remains fully committed to supporting the scientific committee and the work it is doing. On the Conservation Committee, we also remain fully committed to all the work that the committee is doing. It has been mentioned several times already that there's a lot of challenges that cetaceans are facing across the globe, and we think it is important to continue this work, and therefore we also support the extension of the work plan for another year, so that even in COVID times, we as the Commission can continue the important work we are doing both in the Scientific and in the Conservation Committee. And I would also like to thank Lorenzo wholeheartedly for the hard work and that he has been doing in the past few years, and also the excellent virtual meeting we had last year. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing everyone, hopefully next year in Slovenia, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now I have the distinguished commissioner from Chile. Please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Quería sumarme a las expresiones recién vertidas por los distinguidos delegados de Brasil y de Argentina, y felicitar a Lorenzo Rojas Bracho por su excelente trabajo en el Comité de Conservación. Al mismo tiempo, brindamos apoyo al plan de ordenación de la conservación para delfines de río, que es tan importante por las razones que hemos escuchado a lo largo de esta jornada. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. The next is distinguished commissioner from Palau. Please take the floor. Mr. Echabey, please take the floor, or if you're speaking, you're muted. We cannot hear you. Now we can hear you, yeah.
Hear me now? Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Since this is the first time the mic, just because I just saw a notice that Palau had cleared its areas. So now we can participate in this session fully. And I'm also the new commissioner for the Republic of Palau. And this is also the first time I attend this IWC meeting. So with this opportunity, I like to thank the Commission for this opportunity for Palau to be represented in this meeting. And I also like to thank the Bureau and the Secretariat for their tireless effort in organizing for this very special meeting during this pandemic. I also like to thank the scientific committee in its work throughout the years, especially headed by Robert for the last 3 years. It's the first time I get to this kind of meeting, so I'm very impressed with a lot of work and effort put into the scientific committee work, which is the cornerstone of IWC. On the Conservation Committee, I also like to thank the chairman for his very informative presentation earlier. And I'm just curious to find out or to know, during the commissioners meeting the other day, the executive secretary was commended for her collaborative effort in working or attending other international organizations meeting. And most of them, I gather, were mostly environmental organizations. And I think her effort in collaborating with those organizations is highly commendable. And perhaps we may be able to consider maybe giving some of the scientific committees, the Conservation Committee effort or mandate that had been given to them by the Commission, like the pollution, the ship strikes, the bycatch, whale watching. They probably would be undertaken by other organizations. As I understand it, the World Tourism Organization probably has more money than IWC. Maybe they could help people who are countries that are interested in promoting whale watching as a tourism attraction to help in that effort. In terms of pollution, there's a lot of other organizations, conventions that address pollutions. We just cleared our areas because we are having difficulty in our own financial situation. So with the IWC experiencing also financial crisis, it may be a good time to look at some of those organizations to undertake some of these activities that we have assigned the IWC to undertake. And so with that, thank you very much. And I'm very glad and happy to see that Palau has cleared its areas over the last 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the information you provided. Now I will open the floor for governments that are not members of the IWC. I don't see a request for the floor. So the next one is intergovernmental organizations. And here I see a request for the floor from the Convention on Migratory Species. So Melanie, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. As the Secretariat of the Convention on Migratory Species, and speaking also on behalf of our Azkaban's Agreement, I'd like to congratulate the Chair and the members of the Conservation Committee on their excellent work. CMS and Azkaban's continue to work very closely with the IWC Secretariat and the Committee on many areas of mutual interest, but in particular on bycatch mitigation, on the whale watching handbook, which has been prepared jointly by IWC and CMS, and where we've recently completed a number of translations of the components of that, and with the work on river dolphins. And we continue to look forward to ongoing cooperation with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I will open the floor for observer NGOs. And like previously, I would like you all to raise the hands so that for the management of time, I can see. Okay. I have one NGO, one hand. So I will pass the floor to Paso Pacifico. Please take the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, y desde nuestra organización nos gustaría hacer constar nuestra felicitación por el trabajo realizado al Comité de Conservación que preside Lorenzo y también por los logros alcanzados de manera multilateral, ¿verdad?, a nivel regional en la elaboración del Plan de Manejo y Conservación de la población norte de ballena jorobada, del cual somos parte, y por las asesorías y facilidades brindadas para la elaboración también del Plan Nacional de Conservación de Cetáceos del país no miembro El Salvador, del cual también somos partes, y por esas razones pues agradecer a Lorenzo y felicitarlo por el trabajo realizado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I have one more NGO. As this intervention was short, I'll pass the floor also to Promar from Costa Rica. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I also would like to make a special congratulations for the chair of the scientific committee, also the incoming Chair Alex and Lindsay, and also to congratulate Lorenzo for his hard work also through this year in the Conservation Committee, and to highlight the great importance to finally approve the management, the CMC or management plans, conservation management plans for river dolphins and humpback whales of Central America. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. With this, we have heard all the interventions, and I presume now the Commission can note this report, and then we close this agenda item. So the report noted, and now we go to the next agenda sub-item, which is joint presentation by scientific and conservation committees on draft terms of reference for Conservation Committee, Scientific Committee Working Group, and Conservation Management Plan for river dolphins. I call your attention to the joint report from the Scientific and Conservation Committee, which was posted on the website of this virtual special meeting on 7th of August and made available in 3 languages. Chairs of both committees in this letter respectfully request the attention of the Commission on a small number of issues where action is required before the next in-person Commission meeting at the end of 2022. Therefore, I'll now pass the floor to co-chairs, to chairs, to provide an overview, and then follow their request that the Commission notes these matters and endorses any recommendations as we did always in the past. Please take the floor. Whoever.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to talk a bit and then wait for our outgoing Chair Robert or incoming Chair Alex, or our new Scientific Committee Vice Chair Lindsay, and of course to our very good Vice Chair Kat from the UK. Just to remind you that it was Resolution 2014/4, where it was agreed to establish a working group between the Conservation Committee and the Scientific Committee in order to propose a procedure to facilitate the implementation and follow-up of conservation recommendations. And the working group has had 4 meetings since 2015, but has not met since 2019 for the financial challenges that you all know about. And certainly after that, because of the COVID restrictions and the scientific committee virtual meeting. As part of the working group on operational effectiveness that you also heard yesterday, this process has suggested that working groups have to have clear fit-for-purpose terms of reference. And as such, terms of reference for the Conservation Committee and the Scientific Committee working group, we revised them this year. And I would like to ask that any comments on the draft revised TOR are encouraged and should be sent, please, to the chairs, to Alex and myself, during the intersessional period for review at the next Conservation Committee Scientific Committee Working Group meeting in 2022. And the final terms of reference will be presented to the Commission for consideration, of course, at IWC 68, which, as many have expressed, we hope will be in person. Besides the review of the terms of reference, we also looked at the future work plan of the Joint Conservation Committee and Scientific Committee working groups. Just allow me to mention that we discussed, and thanks to the chair of the Scientific Committee, that deciding priorities for conservation issues is always difficult, especially under current circumstances. And we formed a small group to discuss a process for determining these priorities and on the framework of the current situation of the Commission. For those interested in the full report, there is a dedicated page now for the Conservation Committee, Scientific Committee Working Group reports, and you can find those under the main navigation under the reports section of the Scientific Committee Research tab. The Conservation Committee and Scientific Committee Working Group request the Commission during this virtual special meeting to support the implementation of the Scientific Committee and Conservation Committee approved conservation management plan for river dolphins from the Amazon, Orinoco, and Tocantins, Araguaia, were proposed by Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, and Peru. Given the threats to the river dolphins, both the Scientific and the Conservation Committee have encouraged the proponents to move forward in the CMP's implementation, as there is strong support and the scientific aspects are sound. And I urge you to look at the report of the Scientific Committee to see the very good reviews, and congratulations to the countries that presented this CMP. It was really an excellent work. And this is on my side, and I hope Alex and Robert would like to say something, or our Vice Chair, Kat Bell. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So please, Robert.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I really don't have anything to add to what Lorenzo has already said, other than to thank Lorenzo for taking the lead and giving the presentation today. And those topics that he raised are the ones that we felt were the most important for the commissioners to consider today. So thank you for your time and attention on this issue.
Thank you very much. Does the co-chair of the Conservation Committee want to add something? Kat? Vice Chair. Oh, Vice Chair, sorry. I guess not. Okay. Then thank you for this report. Now I open the floor for interventions. Are there any questions or suggestions? I have Colombia first. Distinguished Commissioner from Colombia, please take the floor.
Buenos días, ¿me escuchan bien?
Sí.
Ok. Primero que todo, buenos días. Gracias, señor presidente. Desde Colombia queremos agradecer a las presentaciones, y en especial agradecer a los presidentes y vicepresidentes del Comité Científico y el Comité de Conservación por haber incluido entre los temas prioritarios al CMP Delfines de Río de Sudamérica, que lideramos con los gobiernos de Brasil, Colombia, Ecuador y Perú. Asimismo, agradecemos a los países que han expresado su apoyo a esta iniciativa, especialmente a nuestros colegas del Grupo de Buenos Aires. En los países proponentes hemos trabajado en esta propuesta desde el CMP de la mano de los científicos, de la sociedad civil, de nuestra región y un esfuerzo conjunto que nos permita dar acciones para afrontar las amenazas de estas especies y superar las diferentes etapas que han establecido la CBI para lograr su aprobación. Este esfuerzo refleja en la propuesta del CMP que sometimos a consideración del Comité Científico en mayo de 2020 y del Comité de Conservación en octubre de ese mismo año, así como nuevamente al Comité Científico en su reunión de este año. En estas reuniones, la propuesta del CMP recibió los mejores comentarios, de los cuales me permito resaltar algunos de ellos. El Comité Científico ha felicitado nuevamente a los países de Colombia, Brasil, Ecuador y Perú por presentar un excelente borrador de propuesta de CMP para los delfines de ríos sudamericanos. Tal colaboración internacional a nivel gubernamental, ambiental y científico es un ejemplo útil para que otros lo sigan. Asimismo, estas iniciativas, ante estas instancias de la CBI, indicaron que el CMP cuenta con aspectos científicos sólidos para incluir su implementación. En ese sentido, queremos expresar el más firme compromiso de nuestros gobiernos con el CMP Delfines de Río de Sudamérica, y nos gustaría que la Comisión en el día de hoy se pronuncie al respecto en esta propuesta con ánimo de dar un paso hacia adelante en el camino que estamos recorriendo y avanzar mucho más en las acciones planteadas para abordar las amenazas de estas especies. Igualmente, expresar, aún en medio de la pandemia por el COVID-19, los gobiernos hemos seguido en contacto de la mano de iniciativas de la sociedad civil que han adelantado importantes acciones en pro de estos cetáceos. Finalmente, en nombre de los proponentes de este CMP, quiero manifestar nuestro total interés de seguir trabajando de cerca con la Comisión, el Comité Científico y el Comité de Conservación, particularmente con el Grupo de Trabajo Permanente sobre el CMP, de quienes hemos recibido un permanente apoyo y nos han expresado su interés de seguir acompañándonos en este proceso. Muchas gracias y hasta pronto.
Thank you very much, Colombia. I see no other request for the floor from member governments. Any requests from non-member governments? I also don't see any requests from non-member governments. Any requests from intergovernmental organizations? I also don't see any requests from intergovernmental organizations. So I open the floor for interventions of non-governmental organizations. And per usual, okay. I see a request for the floor from a member government. So I'm going back. France, please take the floor.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je vous remercie et m'excuse de cette demande tardive. Je profite de cette intervention pour me présenter. Je suis Florian Expert du ministère de la Transition écologique et commissaire adjoint de Clément Payeur, ministère des Affaires étrangères ici présent. Je voulais juste remercier la Commission baleinière internationale pour ce travail sur et en particulier les comités scientifiques et de conservation pour ce travail sur les dauphins de rivière en Amérique centrale et je voulais souligner que la France est attachée à la protection de la Sotali, donc le dauphin de Guyane, et que nous allons prochainement travailler avec donc nos services en Guyane à une protection renforcée, à un plan afin de renforcer la protection de cette espèce. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, France. Now I go back to the NGOs. And as I said, per usual practice, I'll ask all the NGOs to put their hands on. I see one request, so I will pass the floor to Centro Conservación Cetacea. Please take the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, por esta oportunidad para compartir nuestras ideas sobre este tema. Me dirijo hoy a ustedes en nombre de 15 organizaciones de la sociedad civil y otras organizaciones regionales, cuya copia completa, incluyendo la lista de las organizaciones civiles inscritas para esta reunión especial virtual que la respaldan, se presentará a la Secretaría. Aplaudimos a los gobiernos proponentes, los cuales reconocen la necesidad existente de aunar esfuerzos para la reducción del conflicto entre los delfines de río y las pesquerías, mitigar los efectos de las actividades humanas, mejorar la conectividad del hábitat y mejorar el conocimiento sobre las tendencias de la población, la taxonomía, la genética, la ecología y la salud de los delfines de río en la región, a través de una estrategia concertada. El Plan de Gestión y Conservación para los Delfines de Río del Amazonas, Orinoco y Tocantins, Araguaia, bajo el paraguas de la CBI, es un paso inmenso hacia la coordinación de los esfuerzos individuales realizados por las naciones del área de distribución para tratar efectivamente de salvar a los delfines de río que se encuentran entre los cetáceos más amenazados del mundo. Agradecemos a los comités científicos y de conservación de la CBI su respaldo e instamos a la Comisión a que acelere los próximos pasos en el proceso de implementación para hacerlo realidad, por medio del cual las 4 especies contempladas tendrán las mayores posibilidades que se respete su derecho a la existencia con una gestión multilateral que además beneficia a todo el ecosistema. Vemos que iniciar este CMP ahora es apropiado para evitar un proceso de desaparición de estas poblaciones de delfines, para asegurar que sigan desempeñando un papel clave en los ecosistemas y en la socioeconomía de las poblaciones humanas donde habitan. Por lo tanto, alentamos a todos los representantes presentes hoy aquí a apoyar a los gobiernos proponentes de Brasil, Colombia, Ecuador y Perú, y a las respectivas organizaciones civiles involucradas en su esfuerzo de comprometer a otros gobiernos, al sector privado y a la sociedad civil hacia la conservación de los delfines de río de Sudamérica. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. With this, the list of interventions is closed. I presume Commission can note the report and endorse any recommendations. With this,
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, this is as chair of the Conservation Committee. I might look fully awake, but my brain is not completely awake, I think. But I just wanted to thank the words of support from all the countries to the Conservation Committee work. And many of those countries, I think one of the greatest support is not only supporting the work we do in different ways, but also providing chairs and leads for the different standing working groups of the Conservation Committee, and I really would like to thank all those countries that have helped that way. We struggle a bit to get someone to lead the sheep strikes. We have now an NGO, and I like to thank her for stepping up and helping with the sheep strikes standing working group. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. With this, the report is noted and any recommendations endorsed. And now we still have 4 agenda items, I mean, including any other business with us. I would first kindly ask you, colleagues and the translators, to be ready for a 45 minutes, let's say 45 minutes extension of this meeting. And I think a comfort break will do good to all of us. So I would announce basically a 12 minutes comfort break. So meeting again at 10:20, and we still have to do the Budgetary Subcommittee, the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness, the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling Subcommittee, and the Voluntary Contributions. So meeting adjourned till 10:20. Let us continue the meeting. I hope you will be back soon. Or you are already back. Many cameras are off, therefore I'm not sure. And I know that in whole America, it's already very late in the night.
I would say very early in the morning.
Very early in the morning indicates that you already slept.
No, it's too. I had this conflict of going to bed or waiting until the meeting started. It took me a while, then I decided to stay so I wouldn't struggle waking up. But it's 2:20 right now here.
Okay, so let's continue with the meeting.
Oops, sorry.
And the next agenda item is the update from the Budgetary Subcommittee. I start by calling your attention to the Budget Subcommittee report on the two small discussion groups that were held over the past 6 months. I would like to use this opportunity to thank our Australian colleagues for all the work done, patiently guiding the groups through this difficult debate in the period of financial uncertainty. And I would thank all the colleagues participating in the small group for their engagement. These reports were posted on the meeting website on 9th of July and are available in all 3 languages. Now I call on Adam Clark of the Budget Subcommittee to give us a presentation and provide an overview. Adam, please take the floor.
Great, thank you very much, Chair, and for those very kind words. I do actually have a presentation, so I'm going to try to share my screen. I think it should be very quick. Okay. Can someone just confirm that they can see the shared screen and that it's in presentation mode?
Yes, that's right. We can.
Great, thank you. So I know we've already had quite a lot of budget discussion over the last couple of days, but we thought this was a very good opportunity to regroup and ensure we all have a shared understanding of the long-term financial challenges the Commission is facing. It's also a really good opportunity to make sure that all commissioners and observers are aware of the processes underway to develop proposed solutions to those challenges, and that all commissioners and observers participate in those processes and make sure their opinions are heard. So we were very pleased that the Commission was able to pass the critical bridge budget for 2022, which will ensure the Commission can continue to function until we can next meet in person to have a more fulsome budget discussion, hopefully late next year. We were also very pleased that the Commission agreed by consensus for the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness to consider the financial impacts of the global pandemic on contracting governments, especially developing countries, and to bring forward proposals in that regard for the Commission's consideration. We understand that it is very difficult for contracting governments to think about the Commission's long-term financial trajectory at the moment, when many contracting governments are struggling to pay their contributions this year. However, the Commission's dire financial situation means we unfortunately cannot put these longer-term discussions on hold. We must start thinking through these challenges and taking steps now to improve the Commission's finances to ensure that it too can emerge from the other side of the pandemic as a strong and financially viable organisation. So to begin, I just wanted to quickly touch base on the role of the Budgetary Subcommittee. I'm sure everyone's aware, but I know there are a lot of new faces in the room today. So the Budgetary Subcommittee sits under the Finance and Administration Committee and was established to review the Commission's income and expenditure and develop budget proposals. The Budgetary Subcommittee is an objective and impartial body. Its purpose is to provide a level of independent financial advice and put practical options on the table. It does not make assessments about the importance or priority of the Commission's various work streams. And of course, all budget decisions will ultimately be up for the Commission to make. So at the moment, the Budgetary Subcommittee has two key priorities. The first is correcting the budget deficit. So as most of you would probably be aware by this point, the Commission has been overspending for many years, which we can't keep doing. To ensure the Commission remains financially viable, the Budgetary Subcommittee is developing proposals to balance the budget for the next biennium, which will create a new baseline going forward. The second priority for us is updating the Commission's financial processes and helping to bring them in line with international best practice through the development of the budget reform strategy. Both of these matters would be considered by the Commission after it has considered the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness's paper on potential alternate rules for voting rights that the group was directed to develop yesterday. But in the meantime, I just wanted to stress that all members of the Commission, regardless of voting rights, are able to engage in the development of these papers, and we strongly encourage everyone to do so. Let's talk through the two priorities, starting with the Commission's current financial situation. As we mentioned yesterday, we were able to balance the Commission's budget for 2022 by rolling forward the one-off savings that have resulted from not having in-person meetings over the past couple of years. However, those savings will all be used up next year. And as we start heading back to business as usual from IWC 68 onwards, we will be facing significant overspends each year. Currently, we are looking at a £352,000 overspend in the 2023-24 biennium if we keep income and expenditure at their current levels. And this deficit will likely get higher and higher every year due to inflation. So this is actually not a new or sudden problem. The Commission has been adopting deficit budgets for several years now, which has run down its cash reserves. So the graph on the screen here shows that if we continue down our current path and the deficit continues to grow, the Commission will run out of available funds by 2026. So that's that convergent point just there. This means we only have IWC 68 and then one more Commission meeting before we reach that point. But in reality, we actually need to solve the problem well before that, because that point in 2026 is when the Commission's cash reserves will hit zero. But the Commission unfortunately cannot operate without a cash reserve. As we've all recognised over the last couple of days, the pandemic has made it harder for contracting governments to pay their contributions on time each year. This means the Commission needs to have adequate savings in the bank to be able to pay its bills throughout the year until it receives its income. And if that reserve gets too low, the Commission could actually become insolvent within the next year or two. So this situation has arisen for a variety of reasons, including because annual contributions have not increased in almost a decade, while the cost of running the Commission has continued to rise with inflation. But the good news is that there are solutions to these problems that the Commission can consider at IWC 68 to set us down a better path. So as the chair mentioned at the start of this, towards the end of last year, the Budgetary Subcommittee convened 2 small discussion groups that represented the Commission's leadership and a subset of the Commission's membership. All members of the Commission were invited to participate in these groups. As the chair mentioned, a record of this process has been translated and made available as a paper for this meeting. Both groups discussed the budget challenges and possible solutions, including the advantages and disadvantages of each. They agreed that there are 3 key ways the Commission could address the budget problem outside of external funding sources. These are to increase member contributions, find significant savings in current expenditure, or a combination of both. There are, of course, advantages and disadvantages to all of these options, and the purpose of the Budgetary Subcommittee's consultation has been to better understand those advantages and disadvantages so we can put forward well-informed proposals at IWC 68. So I might just quickly touch on a high-level summary of those options now, but we'll provide more detail about each of them as we progress with consultation over the coming months. So one possible solution is to increase member contributions in 2023 and then maintain that new level going forward with possible minor adjustments each year to keep track with inflation. This would be calculated individually based on members' current contributions and their capacity to pay. There is an option for the Commission to consider whether only capacity to pay groups 3 and 4 would take on this burden. This increase would address the current deficit and therefore no savings would need to be agreed at IWC 68. However, we recognise that for some members, a fee increase may be challenging, if not completely impossible, especially considering the financial impacts of COVID. So another possible solution is to keep contributions frozen, as they currently are, and instead identify and agree substantive savings. As I mentioned, that number around £352,000, that is quite significant. And to address that full deficit, we would need to find significant savings from all budget streams within the Commission, including the Secretariat, the meetings budget and the Scientific Committee's research fund. It is important to note that the Commission has already made efficiency gains over the past few years, including in the Secretariat and the Scientific Committee's research fund. So finding additional savings will not be an easy task. So a couple of the options that the Commission may need to give serious consideration to under this scenario would be permanently moving from annual to biennial Scientific Committee meetings or changes to the operation of the Secretariat. And of course, it goes without saying that these possibilities carry significant risks. The Scientific Committee leadership and the Secretariat have been working with the Budgetary Subcommittee to provide advice on those risks, and we will continue our close engagement with them as we develop these proposals up for IWC 68. And then, of course, the third option is a combination of both of those. So possible small increase to contributions combined with less savings. So we've had over the past 12 months a few questions about whether the proposed sale of the Red House would solve the financial situation. And unfortunately, the short answer to that is no. The decision to sell the Red House was based on the fact that the ongoing maintenance and repair costs were significant and outweighed the expenses of the Secretariat renting local office space as needed. If the Red House is sold, it would not be sustainable to use up that income by continuing to overspend. It would not solve the situation in the long term and would end up back here having these same discussions in just a couple of years' time. However, what that income can do is help to replenish the Commission's cash reserve, which I mentioned earlier is a significant issue at the moment. So a decision on balancing the budget must be made at IWC 68 If we defer consideration of this to IWC 69, the Commission just will not survive. This chart on the screen now shows the steps ahead of us to ensure a balanced budget can be agreed at IWC 68. And we really don't want there to be any surprises when this issue is discussed at IWC 68 next year. So we really encourage and urge all members to share their views and engage in this process now and over the coming months. So for the second part of my presentation, and I know I've been talking a lot, so we'll keep this quick. I just wanted to quickly run through the budget reform strategy, which the Budgetary Subcommittee has been developing in partnership with the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness. So hopefully everyone will have seen this at some point over the past 18 months, but if you haven't, I really encourage you to reach out to us after this meeting and we can share a copy, and we'd really value your feedback on it. So the budget reform strategy proposes a series of sensible and practical principles to make budget processes easier for the Commission and its members. It focuses on creating a solid foundation for the Commission's finances going forward, and recommends some of the things that are on the screen there, such as improvements to the way the Commission develops its budgets and manages its finances, the establishment of a set of principles for producing budgets, monitoring spending and ensuring robust financial controls, updates to the financial regulations to correct outdated or inaccurate terminology, to simplify language and to consolidate guidance, and to centralise the rules, financial rules and guidance for ease of reference and transparency. Through this strategy, we're not seeking to make any changes to contributions or the formulas. It's not intended to impose any additional administrative or financial burdens on members. And it's also not through this strategy that we would seek to reduce expenditure. So there's a few examples on the screen there of some of the principles that are included. I won't go through this, but I do encourage everyone to take a look at these and read them in more detail in the strategy itself. So in terms of next steps, the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness is currently refining the 4 reform papers. You'll hear about the other ones in the next presentation. You can still provide comments on the budget reform strategy either via the chairs of that working group or directly to the Budgetary Subcommittee. And the best way to do that is to email us at the address on the screen there. So in summary, I just wanted to reiterate that Commission budget decisions affect us all. And with IWC 68 only 12 months away now, the Budgetary Subcommittee asks that you start to engage in this process to balance the budget and to finalise the budget reform strategy. Commissioners will be asked to consider these matters at IWC 68. As I mentioned, that would be done after the voting rights paper has also been considered. So it's really important that members come to that meeting ready and able to engage in the discussion. We really do understand the importance of resolving the voting rights issue. But we also really hope that parties won't defer their thinking on these broader budget matters until after that's resolved. As I mentioned earlier, non-financial members are able to participate in this process right now, and we really encourage you to do so. We also really hope that everyone will be able to approach these discussions with an open mind, and perhaps rather than ruling out options immediately, we encourage everyone to give due consideration to each scenario and weigh up the trade-offs. As I said, we're in a really difficult situation at the moment. There are no easy solutions to this. Every option is going to have pros and cons. And so, yeah, really encourage everyone to just take that on board. So thank you very much for listening to all of that and your attention today. I'm very happy to answer any questions. Given, we are still going through the consultation process on this, I I'd probably encourage people to limit their interventions to questions. Very happy to hear country positions through that consultation process over the next few months. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. And I would continue where you ended. These debates within the small groups have lasted already for a while and will last longer till we meet in the IWC 68. So the time now actually doesn't allow us to go into the substantial debates on none of the two parts that you presented on the balanced budget and on the strategy. Therefore, I would encourage participants that I'm sure have very constructive ideas, suggestions, views to engage with the budget subcommittee work and try to bring the thinking forward there. And now I would suggest that we only go for questions and some really major views. So I open the floor for contracting governments. I see no request for the floor, so I presume your presentation. Okay, sorry, it just comes later. Mexico, distinguished commissioner from Mexico, Lorenzo, please start.
Thank you, distinguished chair of the commission. It's not a question. I just would like to thank Australia for their very hard work. It was not easy. It took several meetings. I participated in both groups. And I really would like to thank Adam because this was a great presentation, very visually helpful, and I hope the presentation is available for all the countries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I would suggest also for the sake of time that we can already note from all participants here, thanks to Australia. So thanking Australia for and the leadership of the budget subcommittee, because there were several colleagues from Australia, therefore I'm not referring to one person. There was a team working behind it. So I would simply say in the record of the meeting, we all thank them and the Secretariat for the hard work done and for all the results this work brought. With this, I would try to, let's say, limit the time or not stimulate the interventions that would be mainly thanking. Now I pass the floor to the Commissioner from Belgium, Stephanie. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I won't repeat the thanking. I'm just adding my voice then to save time. One thing we would also like to repeat, in fact, is that this is a very important issue, and we would really, we really believe that it is important to have a full and equitable participation in this discussion, and therefore, like Australia, we really hope that all contracting governments will participate in this discussion. This is an essential discussion for our organization, and it is important that it will be carried by the whole membership. And we also strongly believe that it is important, or it will be important, not to exclude any options and really look into all the options and see what combination of options, in fact, will be the most appropriate to carry our organization forward into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The presentation that Adam was sharing with us will be available on the meeting websites. I see no, yeah, Peru. Commissioner from Peru, please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, presidente. Bueno, quisiera agradecer al distinguido representante de Australia por la presentación que ha realizado. Básicamente yo quería hacerle una pregunta y era si es que se había considerado también en digamos, este trabajo que se ha hecho otras alternativas de financiamiento, además de, digamos, de esa posibilidad de incrementar las contribuciones y de reducir los gastos de funcionamiento, si han explorado otras alternativas, que pueden ser, no sé, donaciones, en fin, recaudación de recursos por parte de privados, cualquier otros medios. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for the question. I will pass the floor to Adam. However, I would encourage you, colleagues, to engage directly with the budget subcommittee if you have experience in this field or if you have any ideas. That will be the best way that, let's say, your full ideas can be captured and developed within the budget subcommittee group. Adam, can you please answer, and then I'll pass the floor to the next intervention.
Yeah, no worries. Just very briefly, one of the principles within the budget reform strategy is looking at fundraising to support the Commission's work. And so that is something we're definitely keen to take forward. The Commission has in recent years developed up fundraising principles and a strategy, and we now have in place an ethical guide for code for fundraising that has been developed by Belgium and the Intersessional Correspondence Group on Strengthening Financing. So those building blocks are starting to get in place. I think we still need to do some work to progress that. And so that's definitely something we'll continue to look into over the next 12 months. I think parallel to that, though, it is very important when we're talking about the core functions of the Commission for those to be funded through, core contributions. I think it is probably it's a tricky path if we, start to look at funding secretarial meetings through those other sources. So I guess that's just to say it's a parallel process and something we're looking into and welcome views.
Thank you very much. I pass the floor to the Commissioner from New Zealand. Jan, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question. It's one of the principles. I wonder if we could just get clarity in this forum, because I've had some conversations with people and there seems to be different interpretations. It's around the 4-year budget planning. And my understanding is that it's a 2-year budget process that would be agreed at each IWC, but within the context of a 4-year forecast. And as I say, I've just had some conversations with people where that's not clear. If you could just make that quite clear if my understanding is correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Adam?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Your interpretation is correct, and that is the intent there. So what we're proposing, and I apologise, I was going to talk in a bit more detail on this, but for the sake of time, I decided not to. Essentially, yes, budgets would still be agreed on a 2-year basis. However, what we're proposing is that we forecast over a 4-year period. So at each Commission meeting, we would agree a 2-year budget, and then we would also put on the table a provisional 2-year budget for the following biennium. And the purpose of that is just to allow the Commission to be a bit more strategic in setting its budgets and agreeing priorities and expenditure. So it's not always just looking at the immediate year ahead of it. And that also allows contracting governments and observers to anticipate if there's likely to be a fluctuation in expenditure. It gives a few years' notice to be able to take that back to their domestic governments and get the mandate to be able to agree to that. Of course, that forward budget will always be provisional, and so that would be tabled at each Commission meeting. It will be revised in line with any updated priorities that have come up. So it's certainly not locking us into that budget into the future. It's just, you know, an initial forecast to get a sense of what the budget might look like in a few years' time. So we very much welcome any feedback on that, and if there is any, if it's not clear in the strategy exactly what we're proposing here, it's really useful for us to hear that so we can make that clearer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure you will have more active participation after this Commission meeting and after this presentation. There are no requests for the floor from contracting. Okay, I have Togo, Distinguished Commissioner from Togo. Please take the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous avons suivi avec intérêt la présentation de la Commission budgétaire. Félicitations à l'Australie pour ses efforts visant à trouver une solution à la question récurrente de la situation budgétaire de la CBI. Actuellement, les pays à faible revenu ont des difficultés pour contribuer au budget de la CBI. Dans la stratégie qui est retenue, il y a une proposition d'augmenter la contribution budgétaire. Alors, ces pays qui ont déjà des difficultés, et souvent les droits de vote sont suspendus, je ne vois pas comment ces pays pourront participer activement à la vie de notre organisation. Ce qui pose problème que c'est beaucoup d'autres pays qui contribuaient peuvent, avec cette augmentation, éprouver des difficultés et comme cela, on va se retrouver avec un petit nombre de pays qui ont leur droit de vote et qui vont prendre presque en otage cette organisation qui sera leur propriété. Moi, je pense qu'il faudrait vraiment voir dans quelle mesure faire en sorte que tous les pays puissent contribuer. C'est vrai que c'est un problème, mais comment nous devons réfléchir ensemble pour trouver une solution à cette question budgétaire. Par rapport à la planification budgétaire sur 4 ans, moi, je pense que compte tenu des difficultés, il faudrait qu'on soit dans un plan de 2 ans, ce qui permettra que s'il y a des difficultés, on peut se rattraper très rapidement, trouver des solutions. Mais 4 ans, c'est un peu plus complexe et ce serait difficile de trouver une solution quand notre organisation se trouve dans une situation difficile. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I would just point out that in the work of the Budget Subcommittee, every contracting government can participate already now, regardless if you have voting rights or not, regardless if you have arrears or no. There are also observers. So this is not limited to the payment of your dues. So this participation is open, and Adam in his presentation also addressed the possibilities how to approach contracting governments that have difficulties with payments. So not necessarily going into the options that increase the contributions there. I don't know, if, Adam, if you want to complement, please go on.
Just very briefly to note that we understand completely, and we have heard that message loud and clear, that any discussion around contribution increases is going to be difficult. Through the budget discussion processes earlier this year, there was a clear desire from some contracting governments to put forward proposals in that respect. And so it's likely we will do that. It will then be up to the Commission to discuss that at IWC 68. And as I mentioned, this still needs further consultation, but there are some options around adopting that, which might look at capacity to pay groups 3 and 4 increasing their contributions, but no increases to capacity to pay groups 1 and 2. Alternatively, the Commission, after having that discussion, might decide just to take contribution increases off the table completely. And in that scenario, we will be well prepared with savings options to be able to balance the budget without those contribution increases.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I don't see any contracting governments, so I'll ask if there are any governments that are non-parties. I also don't see any requests for the floor. Any intergovernmental organizations? Here I also don't see any requests for the floor. So it's observer NGOs. I would again ask all of you who want to have an intervention to raise your hand. I see one hand, so I would pass the floor to Promar.
Gracias, señor presidente. Y por supuesto, gracias a Ann Clark y a Australia por este extenso y valioso trabajo que esperamos sea muy útil para lo que viene. Mi pregunta es si los incrementos, los eventuales incrementos en las contribuciones que hace cada país miembro, ¿sería un mismo monto para todos los países o se mantendría, digamos, la proporción de los grupos financieros que existen para la contribución regular de cada país? Me disculpo anticipadamente si eso se mencionó, pero no me pareció verlo o escucharlo. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Adam?
Yeah, no worries. I think this will be a discussion for the Commission to have at IWC 68 if contribution increases is something that it wishes to pursue. I think it would be proposed on the basis that it is done in line with the current contribution formula.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So meaning proportionally, not the same amount for everyone.
Proportionally, although as I did mention, the Commission, it's within the Commission's ability to decide to manage that differently. And if the Commission decided that it would, the capacity to pay groups 3 and 4 would like to bear most of that impact, then that is something the Commission could discuss and agree to if they wished. However, generally it would be done evenly and proportionally in line with the existing contribution formula.
Thank you very much. I have a request for the floor by the contracting government. So I pass the floor to the distinguished commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda. Please take the floor. You're muted. We see that you're talking.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, thank you for this late intervention. But I thought that this matter might have been raised by Adam in his analysis of just how we can raise finances and so forth, the financial options. I wonder if any historical review have been done to the process of financing the commission, and just what impact this have had on the IWC, given that its core functions, according to our convention, have been removed to the extent where most of the interest in contracting governments that have a deep interest in whaling are pursuing the whaling activities under either different categories within the commission, or pursuing the whaling activities under the guidance of other international organizations. I believe that we have to look at that historical fact. I believe that any financial adjustments, any financial analysis have to speak truthfully to that issue so that we can realize whether or not our departure from our core functions have driven away several contracting governments, along with their contributions, significant contributions, where they are now finding interest in alternative international organizations and not our organization in pursuit of the national interests of whaling. We cannot sweep that under the carpet. It's a fact. We have to look at it as part of our analysis and advise, bring advice to the Commission, not only on the impact of our financial situation, but also on remedies with regards to going back to our core functions and letting us function in the way that this organization was set up to function. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Adam, do you wish to respond briefly? And I presume for a more deeper analysis and debate on this, it would be very good to engage on this within the budget subcommittee group, so not at this meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to just take that one and note that, noting also that we have very clear directives within the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness, through which the budget reform strategy is being proposed, that these proposals will not go to the core mandate of the convention, but happy to have further discussions on what analysis and of previous budgets and whatnot that we could present to the Commission to support that discussion at IWC 68.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. With this, we have exhausted the list of interventions. So I presume we can note this report and then move to the next agenda item. So I conclude the report is noted. And now we go to the next agenda sub-item, which is updates from the working group on operational effectiveness. I would like to draw your attention to the work of the working group on operational effectiveness. The group remained very active also in the period when in-person meetings weren't possible. The co-chair joined me in chair's consultations with regions. They continued to work per distance, and they held a virtual meeting this July. I would like to thank the group for their high motivation and all the work done. The report from the WGOE co-chairs was posted on the meeting website on 18th of August in all 3 languages. I call now the co-chairs to provide an overview and update from this working group.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to see all of you in this virtual format. So in the interest of time, we are now over our time limit, and so I will just very, very briefly give the highlights of the paper that we submitted that hopefully you all have had the opportunity to take a look at. Just as a reminder, the work that we have been doing over this intersessional period has largely been based on the independent review that we conducted. We started in 2016. And if you recall, at our last meeting in 2018, when we received that report from the independent reviewers, there was a lot of criticism that it did not reflect the full range of views of the membership of this commission. So the working group on operational effectiveness was then directed to take that the report from the independent reviewers and work with the committees and subcommittees of the commission, as well as and member governments, to develop proposals that the commission could then consider at IWC 68. So as the chair mentioned, we held a workshop in London. Thank you for the UK for hosting us when we could see each other in person at that time. And we went through the independent review and so we went through the review and in many different ways, and decided that the best way forward were to present 4 different papers, and they are on commission meeting structure, or reforms to the commission meeting structure and the meeting operations, and other what we're calling low-hanging fruit items, things that we think would be easy reforms to implement. And those 2 papers are combined into one paper or one document. And then a 3rd paper on strategic principles and a terms of reference for a working group on strategic plan. And then as Adam just outlined previously, the budget reform strategy. So quickly, we pulled those papers together and they were sent out for comment in early 2020, and with the intent that we would present them at IWC 68 in 2020 that year, and we all know what happened then. So we regrouped, took some additional time to incorporate any additional comments that we got, and put out new versions in early 2021. And again, one of the things that happened with not being able to travel at that time too is that we were not able to do a lot of the targeted outreach that we had tried to do. But again, with the chair's help and our virtual discussions, we were able to reach out to a couple of different groups throughout this past year. So, and I think for those of you who are able to participate in those discussions. So So anyway, so the papers have been put back out again for updated versions. Excuse me. Sorry, it's very early for me. I could go through a quick summary of proposals, but they're contained in the paper. So I will assume that hopefully you all have read that. And I can answer any questions about what we're doing. But before we do, I will turn it over to my co-chair, Kat, who will talk about our next steps, what we're going to be doing next.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a little less early for me. So in terms of next steps, as Lisa mentioned, there have already been several rounds of comments on the drafts of the papers to get them to try and take on board as many of views as possible. We are now asking for further comment from all members, especially those who haven't yet engaged, by the end of November this year. Based on the comments provided and the discussions had to date, the WGOE will then refine the papers and provide clearer and concise draft proposals to the Commission by the end of March next year. As tasked at the meeting yesterday, the WGOE will also develop a paper with options for possible changes to the rules of procedure on the link between the financial status and voting rights. And we will aim to do this in a similar time frame and hopefully provide a draft by the end of March 2022. Provided COVID circumstances allow and the scientific meeting does go ahead as planned in May next year, we intend to hold an in-person WGOE meeting in the margins to discuss any outstanding concerns with the finalised proposals. Following that, the proposals will then be properly finalised based on those discussions and will be submitted 60 days prior to IWC 68 for discussion and decision by contracting parties in October 2022. So to summarise, I would urge anyone who hasn't yet provided any comments, please do send through comments on the draft papers that are available on the IWC website. But if you are having any problems accessing them, just get in touch with myself or Lisa and we would be happy to share drafts with you. Happy to take any questions, but otherwise, yeah, please do feel free to get in touch with either of us to discuss anything in more detail. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Again, like for the previous agenda item, we will not be able to discuss ideas in substance here or to go into the deeper debates because the group has discussed these matters at several meetings going on for many hours. Therefore, again, I would encourage all the colleagues here to engage with all their views and ideas in the work of this group. And for the sake of time, I would kindly ask you now to take the floor only if you have some direct questions or any major contributions. So the floor is open for contracting governments. I have the distinguished commissioner from Palau. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any comment. It's just a question. Since I'm new to this gathering, there are 88 members. And so if we are commenting through online, how would, I'm just wondering how all the 88 members' comments would be incorporated in some kind of text for further review and comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've passed the floor to one of the co-chairs. I don't know which one of you wishes to answer.
Well, I can try, but So thank you for that question. We've taken written comments as well as comments received when we hold either the workshop or a virtual meeting. So those are both ways to get information to us. And yeah, we welcome further comments and encourage you to participate in a future meeting.
Thank you. I'm sure our email contacts are on the web page.
The other thing that I could mention is that the working group is working with the assistance of the Secretariat through a SharePoint site. So we can give folks access to that SharePoint site and you can see all the comments that we've received thus far and all the previous versions too. It's quite a lot to dig through.
Okay, thank you. So the easiest way for those who want to engage, and that's highly welcome to engage, is to contact the Secretariat. I see no request for the floor from contracting government, so I will open the floor for any government that is not a member. And I see Japan. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Lisa and Kat for your hard work. I think it's really a difficult task to compile the opinions of the various members and observers. Japan, as an observer, would like to continue its contribution to the working group for elaboration of the document, 4 papers for submission to the next IWC 68 meeting. Being said that, I understand that the Commission has tasked new homework to you co-chairs to elaborate a new document on relating to the voting right and contribution or area. Can you please provide us some perspective of your work, taking into account the proposed time frame for the work, for the existing work? Otherwise, we might be lost totally toward the next IWC meeting. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hideki. And Kat and I did have a brief conversation or a chat about this yesterday as we were receiving our new tasking. We were thinking that we would try to we are going to approach this new tasking as separate from the existing 4 papers. So we're not going to incorporate this into what we currently have. And so we are thinking that we will try to hold some sort of workshop or maybe probably a virtual meeting, definitely a virtual meeting before the end of the year. But I know I don't have time before the end of October, and I think Hideki probably knows why. So to focus on that. So it'll probably be in the November or December timeframe. But we'll work with the Secretariat and get times out to the Commission.
Thank you very much. It's really a challenging task, but I really count on you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I open the floor for interventions, possible interventions of intergovernmental organizations. I see no request for the floor from intergovernmental organizations, so I open the floor for possible interventions of NGO observers. I see one request for the floor, and that's IWC MC. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The only remark we'd like to make with respect to the work of the working group on operational effectiveness is that I think in one of the paper we've seen the possibility of calling for or opening the door, if you want, to voluntary contributions, or if we call in other fora, external funding. And I'd just like to mention one of the words was said by Adam when he presented his report on the subcommittee on budget, when he said that coping with the shortfall of the budget by using external funding or donation is a tricky thing. I would just like to add that it's not only tricky, it's dangerous. And whenever we hope to be able to participate in the next session of the working group, to be able to provide some more advice and guidance in that respect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. With this, there are no other requests for the floor. So I think the Commission can note this report. I see no objection, so thank you. Then we go to our next agenda item, which is update from the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling Subcommittee. You will remember, colleagues, that this agenda sub-item was added at the beginning of this meeting at the request of Switzerland, who is the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling Chair. The report was posted on the meeting website already earlier on 1st of September and is available in all 3 languages. It also has 2 annexes that it contains. I will now ask the ASW Chair to provide an overview and update from this committee. So Bruno, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just try to install the PowerPoint presentation that you don't have to look at me the whole time. So and just a moment. Okay, I think that should work. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we see you with presentation and we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, as there are some new members in the group of commissioners and alternate commissioners, and also maybe some new observers, they are not that familiar with the history of the IWC, and one of the most important parts of the work of the IWC is the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling we have. So just let me give the time to give some general remarks and then some information to where we are and what will be done in the future. So it's just for information, as I initially already mentioned the day before. To the background, Aboriginal subsistence whaling is conducted by 4 member countries: Kingdom of Denmark, Greenland, the Russian Federation in Chukotka, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Beguia, and the United States, the Alaska Natives, and potentially the Market Tribe of Washington State. The IWC has a role in conducting the science and stewardship of ASW hunts, recognizing the potential impact of this important work on traditional culture. The objective of ASW management is to ensure that hunted whales population are maintained at or brought back to healthy levels, while enabling native people to hunt whales at levels that satisfy cultural and natural requirements. Catch limits. ASW catch limits are set in multiple year blocks, usually of 6 years. The current quotas were agreed to at IWC 67 in September 2018 and set at a one-off quota of 7 years. This additional year was added to create a 1-year buffer period between setting and implementation of all future quota blocks. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the IWC meeting schedule, but this does not impact the ASW quota schedule because the Commission is not due to review quotas until 2024 to be implemented in 2025. The Commission considers information from the Scientific Committee regarding sustainability of proposed hunts and safe catch limits and information from the governments representing each hunting community, the need of their indigenous people. At IWC 67, a number of new initiatives were endorsed in order to facilitate a more straightforward process for considering catch limits into the future. This includes a new timeline for sharing information and receiving feedback and an agreement on an automatic renewal of catch limits under specific conditions. Renewal of the catch limits will be next considered at the 2024 meeting of the convention. I know it's probably too small what you see on the screen, but all the documents are available as indicated by the chair on the website. Review of Indigenous rights. At IWC 67, the Commission endorsed the ASW Subcommittee's recommendation for the Secretariat to undertake a survey of Indigenous and human rights instruments, develop its terms of reference and call for a tender in consultation with experts from the Manitzak workshop. This process began in 2018, but is being relaunched to incorporate the important step of expert and ASW country consultation. The Secretariat has undertaken the process of developing the terms of reference and the call for tender, working in consultation with the ASW countries, expert, and attendees from the Manitzak and Quiaquig workshop and other identified experts. Once there are agreed drafts of the terms of reference and the call for tender, they will be reviewed by the ASW subcommittee, who will then provide its advice to the full Commission at IWC 68 in October 2022. If the Commission endorses moving forward with the survey, the call for tender will be published immediately after the Commission's meeting. Collaboration with ASW communities responding to entanglements. The IWC Secretariat has been in contact with the ASW community in Arctic Alaska to help facilitate removal of ghost gear from important bowhead whale habitat. This is in response to the increased sightings by ASW hunters of cetaceans entangled in and or trailing ghost fishing gear, which has the potential to impact the population open these communities depend for subsistence harvest. The IWC Scientific Committee endorsed the recommendations from the 2019 Marine Debris Workshop to investigate ghost gear removal, recommendation SC 19208. The proposed gear removal project in Alaska would be led by the local community. Could include expertise from the US and Norway and potentially expand to the Sea of Okhotsk ASW community. The initial phase would be supported through the ASW Voluntary Fund. At the recent meeting of the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission, it was suggested that this work could be done in collaboration with the Arctic Council. Dear Chair, dear colleagues, I know this is just short information. There are many, many other aspects that are handled in this subcommittee and many important questions or items that will come in front of us the next months or years. Before I finish, just let me once more highlight the importance of the work of the Scientific Committee. As you can see in my presentation, these very important decisions around the life of the people in the far north and in the Caribbean are depending on good advice by the Scientific Committee, and therefore we need a strong Scientific Committee. And I hope that Robert and of course Alex and maybe then also Lindsay will have more time in the future to do their real or most important work. That means to guide all the scientists and not to spend time or too much time around money. So with this, I would like to finish, and I hope that all people in the far north and in the Caribbean are very well, because we heard about the categories when it comes to payment, and that not all are at the same situation right now. But I think even in some countries where maybe the money is not that the problem, still you have people suffering more from COVID than maybe in other areas. So I hope you are all well, and that's from my side. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for this report and for the work you're doing as chair of the ASW. Now I will open the floor for any interventions. First by governments, IWC, member governments. I have Denmark on my list, so distinguished commissioner from Denmark, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. And the Kingdom of Denmark, from the Kingdom of Denmark, and to Bruno, I would really like to thank you for your kind introduction to the work on the ASW. To me as a new commissioner, it was very, I really appreciate that. Now, in terms of the Kingdom of Denmark, we really appreciate the work done in the ASW subcommittee, and that the work will, and we hope that the work will continue to be closely coordinated with the ASW countries. We strongly support collaboration with the Arctic Council Secretariat overall. The Arctic Council has had a focus on marine litter and plastic, and sharing of information that can contribute to our ASW communities. This is something that we strongly support. And finally, we do look forward to being able to meet in person in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The floor to alternate commissioner from Argentina. Miguel, please take the floor.
Muchas gracias, Andrei. En primer lugar, quisiera agradecer a Bruno por guiar el trabajo que se lleva adelante en el ASW, y por supuesto también resaltar la labor del Comité Científico sobre este tema. Quisiera por favor hacer un comentario que se refiere al documento B corta SM 2109 3.2.603, ya que notamos algunas discrepancias con lo acordado en la 67 CBI, y nos parece que como este documento tiene un efecto sustantivo, incluyendo que interpreta lo que se establece en el calendario para la renovación automática de las cuotas de ASW, algo que requiere la debida aprobación de la Comisión, creemos que el autor debería haber solicitado que este asunto se incluyera formalmente en el orden del día de esta reunión. O sea que entendemos que esto debería llevarse a la próxima reunión de la CBI en el punto correspondiente del orden del día y en consonancia con todos los plazos de presentación de documentos. Esto sería todo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I think it's noted, your intervention. I don't know if the chair of the ASW wants to respond to any of those, or it's not necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think it's right now the time. I know that especially the colleagues in Americas are already suffering. They are in the middle of the night, and there is time. And of course, it's important what Mikkel said, that there is no doubt, and it is clear for all that we are talking about the same. But as I indicated, the work will move on, and of course, it should be clarified so that at IWC 68 there will be no controversial discussion or misunderstandings. But I think many of us are tired, and the time is running, and if you agree, then I think we have enough time in front of us. And of course, comments are welcomed by others to me or to the Secretariat. And yeah, that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I open the floor for any possible interventions of non-member governments. And I pass the floor to Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Bruno, for your concise explanation about the situation of the Aboriginal subsistence whaling. As all of you are aware, Japan has been supporting the Aboriginal subsistence whaling, and will continue to support Aboriginal subsistence whaling if they are based on the scientific evidence. In this regard, you have to best use of the scientific information and the examination conducted by the scientific committee with relevant scientists and experts. But you have to recall my intervention at under the agenda item of the report from the scientific committee. The experts responsible for in the field of the management of whalings are at the verge of the extinction. We have to encourage the scientists to vigorously participate in the work of the Aboriginal subsistence whaling in order to secure the sustainable use conducted by those native peoples. Therefore, Japan would urge you commissioners to make best efforts to save the scientific committee for achieving the objective of the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Japan, for your intervention. I open the floor for possible interventions from intergovernmental organizations. I see no request for the floor, so I open the floor for possible interventions by NGO observers. I also see no request for the floor. So with this, we can note this report and conclude the agenda item, and we also conclude our regular agenda items. Now we go to the agenda item, any other business. And there, Antigua and Barbuda announced they would like to discuss voluntary contributions under this agenda item. So I will pass the floor to Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I will not be very long on this matter, given the acuteness of the time that we have. And, you know, we have been up for a very, very long time in this part of the world. And while my colleague in Australia is sipping some wine, we have to be looking towards sipping a nice hot cup of organic tea for breakfast here in Antigua and Barbuda. Be that as it may, Mr. Chair, the financial situation of the Commission is dire. Listening to the chair of the subcommittee for the Budgetary Subcommittee, it is obvious that the IWC is quickly approaching a crisis situation in terms of its solvency. We were told by 1926, if I heard right, that if no remedial action is taken, that we will be very insolvent at the IWC. That's a point of grave concern. It means that as our available finance for core budget programming is concerned, we are quickly going south, heading towards almost zero. And voluntary contributions are more and more being considered to drive the program of the IWC. Voluntary contributions are coming from two channels: member governments, three channels actually: member governments, non-member governments, and NGOs. Voluntary contributions have the potential of determining the direction of the program of the IWC on two fronts. Through voluntary contributions, the donor can specifically request the actual program or project within our organization which they want to fund. They can do it after the project is established, or they can do it through influence peddling, where their pet project can be introduced to a state party who brings it up at the commission, have it endorsed in our work program, and then the contribution comes in what can almost be described as an unusual way by which an international organization should be funded. We need to seriously flag this issue of voluntary contribution and the way in which it can corrupt our very organization. We need to establish a process in our organization whereby we can regulate just how voluntary contributions can be accepted and just how the donors or the contributors can determine how their contribution should be used. Voluntary contribution have destroyed many international organizations and have removed them from their core purposes and their core functions. That's the potential that we're seeing here, Mr. Chair. We're vulnerable. We're lying down helpless. And here come the vulture to decide if we should live or die. And if we're living, how and what conditions should the IWC survive? This is not good for an international organization that is charged with the management of a very important marine resource. I want to appeal to my fellow commissioners to ensure or strive to ensure that we do not allow the infiltration of our organization, the compromising of our program, because we do not have money to function. This matter came to my attention, Mr. Chair, when we met yesterday. And one NGO mentioned that they are contributing to the work of the Conservation Committee and spelled out very clearly exactly what their money should be used for. Nobody's remembering that in order to use those funds, there's an administrative cost. We have to determine what percentage of voluntary contributions must go to the core budget of our organization. We have to determine to what extent can we maintain our independence with an avalanche of voluntary contribution coming our way, influencing our programming. So it's within that background that I'm asking the Commission to seriously take on board the issue of voluntary contribution and just how this funding strategy can compromise the work of our organization, can influence the decision of the Commission, and hence totally remove ourselves from the purpose upon which our organization was formed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for your intervention. My immediate suggestion would be that your concerns are noted, especially by the working group on operational effectiveness, who is dealing within its 4 papers, also with the funding, and take these concerns into account in their work. I open the floor for any other interventions if necessary. I see the Commissioner from Belgium. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you allow me, I would like to respond to some of the concerns raised by the distinguished Commissioner of Antigua and Barbuda in my capacity as chair of the Intersessional Correspondence Group on Strengthening Financing, and maybe also related to that as chair of the Bycatch Mitigation Initiative Standing Working Group. Over the past few years, we have been working on the strengthening of the IWC finances. This is not a new issue. It has been growing, and I fully share your concerns on that. When it comes to voluntary contributions within the intersessional group, which reports to both the Finance and Administration Committee, which reports to the Finance and Administration Committee, but also informs the Conservation Committee. With the agreement and the endorsement of the Commission, we have developed a work plan to look for different modes of funding, and we have also developed the ethical code to which Adam referred in one of the previous items, and as such, it is so that the funding that comes in does not how can I say that? I will say it in a different order. The Commission approves on the work plans of the Commission and its subsidiary bodies. The Voluntary Conservation Fund finances or funds work that is approved by the Commission and by the Conservation Committee. And those are the opportunities for external funding that are there. So it is not as such that some member, contracting party or observer can fund a new work stream. So the funding that comes in only goes to the approved work of the Commission by the Commission. And I hope that clarifies some of your concerns. I would be happy, and I think other people involved in the VCF and also in the budget and finance discussions on the different funds. I think we would all be happy to continue this discussion bilaterally in order to provide more information on how this procedure is working. For the VCF, there is a clear procedure also set up and a steering group. So it really goes through a full endorsement of what the Commission or of what the Commission has decided. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We are coming close to an end of our meeting and also of this agenda item. I see no other requests for the floor from contracting governments. I also don't see any request for the floor from the observer government. Okay, now there is one. So I pass the floor to Japan. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I shall be very brief. Japan fully shares the view expressed by Antigua and Barbuda. In order to secure the healthy governance of this organization, you should introduce appropriate rule for voluntary contribution. And you have to note that activities of the Conservation Committee on which Japan and some other countries did put reservation before, and the situation, Japan believes situation does not change. Therefore, in order to secure the governance of the organization in line with the provision of the convention, you need the proper procedure for the use on the voluntary contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any intergovernmental organizations? No, I see no request for the floor. Then observer NGOs. I see 3 requests for the floor. I would kindly ask you to be if possible, factographic and brief, just for the sake of the time. I'll pass the floor first to Ocean Care. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be very brief. I think it's fair to ask to all delegations to show respect to voluntary contributions made by civil society organizations. We also recall that civil society organizations are bound to the constitution of the organization, which defines its mandate, and we're legally bound to very carefully define and decide where and how to use the funds. We would have hoped that providing voluntary contributions are appreciated and interpreted as good faith support of the work by the IWC and its committees. Thank you.
Thank you. I have IWC MC. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The distinguished commissioner from Antigua and Barbuda put in a very eloquent manner what I described when I mentioned the word dangerous. And again, without going to the details of what can happen, one of the main danger is that external funding or voluntary contribution could be used to steal the credibility of an international institution, to steal the sovereign rights of its members, and to steal the human rights of the citizen of the convention's members. So the only way it can be acceptable is by establishing very strict and enforceable rules on what is acceptable as a special or voluntary contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The last on my list is Human Society International. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and hello, everybody. The NGO communities have been relatively quiet at this meeting, Chairman, respecting your request to coordinate our inputs and also noting the time constraints on this meeting. However, I would not like commissioners or anybody else to think that we are not still passionate in our concerns about cetacean conservation and cetacean welfare. We input to the work of the IWC in many different ways. One of the ways that we do that is through our small financial contributions. Those contributions are made within the rules of the IWC. They are made into existing work streams. And Chairman, distinguished commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, there has never been a more important time or a greater need to work towards the conservation of cetaceans, many of which are acutely threatened, and the prognosis for them is poor. So of course, we encourage that work of the IWC. Chairman, thank you for listening to me. And as I close, I hope that we will salute all the officers and the staff of the IWC in our closing session. It's a shame that we can't stand for the ovation that we would normally give in a real meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We hope to have a real meeting at least next year. I see one more request for the floor, and I will pass the floor also to the Commissioner of Ghana.
Yeah.
And yeah,
thank you
please.
very much, Mr. Chair. Apologies for not having been cited earlier. I think it's in respect of the voluntary contribution. The ATLAFCO group has already reiterated its view and communicated same to the Secretariat. So I believe that view will also be considered in the scheme of things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the leads, the chairs or the co-chairs of the responsible IWC bodies have carefully listened to this debate under any other business. I'm convinced in that, and will take these concerns into their work. And when we approach to the next Commission meeting, the Working Group on Operational Effectiveness will bring us their outputs, and I'm sure we will come out of that process as a better and a stronger organization. With this, we have ended also any other business. Before closing the meeting, I would just take 2 minutes of your time still. As we said, you will receive a chair's report of this virtual special meeting within the period that is usual for these reports to be finalized. I would like to sincerely thank our translators who have listened to our needs and have supported us every day, also when we had to go longer with our debates. In order to somehow record this participation, I would suggest that all of us, I mean all of you, switch on your cameras and we do a screenshot. For this, of course, we need your permission. And I consider that if you will switch on your camera, you permit that this photo, this screenshot photo will be then also provided and put on the web pages of the Secretariat and used by IWCPR. I will ask you to switch on the cameras now, and please let them on for, let's say, 30 seconds at least, because we need to do several screenshots to get you on the screen. While our colleagues are doing this, I would like to thank all of you for the participation. I would like to thank the Secretariat for the hard work done. To all the Secretariat, also to all of those you didn't see on the screens, but were doing important work behind so that we could meet. And I look forward to seeing you in person in Slovenia from 13th to 21st of October 2022 at an in-person IWC meeting 68. You might remember that yesterday I asked you to bring a glass of a drink that suits your time of the day and your habits, so that we take another screenshot when we will all celebrate to 75 years of the IWC. Could you do the screenshots with the glasses too? Get me them.
Should we stand up?
We can. I don't know if that will be visible on the there. You know. No, I mean, many people are having just a portrait. Okay, so na zdravie.
Here, here.
Cheers.
Happy 75th.
Yeah.
Saúde. Saúde.
Thank you, Andrea.
Salute. Salute.
Campai.
Salute.
Cheers.
Prost.
Coffee. Only coffee.
Cheers.
Sure you didn't put any rum in it?
No, Chairman. It's only 7 o'clock in the morning. 2 a.m. is early to wake up.
Okay, so cheers and see you in person in Slovenia. Okay. With this, I close the meeting.
Thank you very much, Andrei, for wisely leading this meeting.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.